Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The white oleander bouquet sat on my desk like a beautiful death sentence, though I wouldn't know that for another 3 hours. At the moment, I was just thinking how my wife Rachel had finally remembered Valentine's Day without me dropping hints like breadcrumbs for the past month. "Wow, Ethan, your wife really outdid herself this time," said Jenny from accounting, leaning over my cubicle wall with that fake smile she reserved for other people's happiness. "Those flowers are gorgeous. What kind are they?" I shrugged, typing numbers into my forensic accounting spreadsheet with the enthusiasm of a man calculating his own taxes. "White ones, pretty ones, wife ones." At 42, I'd learned that the specific names of flowers mattered less than the gesture itself, though I was starting to suspect even the gestures were becoming mechanical. The FBI field office in downtown Washington buzzed with its usual controlled chaos. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, and somewhere in the distance, someone was arguing about evidence protocols. I'd been here 8 years, long enough to know that most of our cases involved following money trails that led to disappointingly predictable places. Rich people stealing from richer people, politicians being politicians, the occasional terrorist financing that made the news and justified our budgets. My phone buzzed. "Rachel, did you get my surprise?" Her voice had that practiced sweetness she used with clients at the pharmaceutical company where she worked as a PR executive. "They're beautiful, thank you." I meant it, mostly. After 14 years of marriage, I'd take any sign that she still remembered I existed. I picked them out special. White oleanders. The florist said they meant beware in some old flower language, but I thought they were just pretty. She laughed, that tinkling sound that used to make my heart skip. Now it just reminded me of wind chimes in a storm. Pleasant until you realized they were warning you about the weather. "Very thoughtful," I said, watching Maya Tran approach my desk with 2 cups of coffee and a concerned expression. Maya was our tech analyst, a former medical student who'd switched to computer forensics after deciding she preferred digital autopsies to the real kind. "Ethan," Maya said, setting down the coffee and lowering her voice. "Those flowers, where did they come from? Rachel, why?" Maya's face went pale. She was 34, Vietnamese American, with the kind of sharp intelligence that made her invaluable in our line of work. She also had a photographic memory for random facts, which was either a blessing or a curse, depending on the situation. "You need to throw those out. Now." "What? Why?" "Oleanders are toxic, like really toxic. Every part of the plant. If you've been handling them," I looked down at my hands. I'd been absently touching the petals while working. Even brought one to my nose to smell it. "How toxic?" "Cardiac glycosides. Can cause irregular heartbeat, nausea, vomiting." In large enough doses, she didn't finish the sentence. The coffee in my stomach suddenly felt like acid. "I'm sure it's fine. I mean, florists sell them, right?" "Ethan, look at me. Do you feel okay? Any nausea? Dizziness?" Now that she mentioned it, I had been feeling a bit off. I'd attributed it to too much coffee and not enough sleep. Maybe a little queasy. "We're going to the hospital, now." The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency room efficiency. Blood tests, EKG, 4 fluids, and a lot of questions about what I'd eaten, drunk, or touched in the past 24 hours. The doctor, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, finally came back with results. "Mr. Cole, you have oleander poisoning. Early stages, but definitely present. You're lucky your friend brought you in when she did." Maya squeezed my hand. "How is that possible? I mean, people don't just accidentally get poisoned by flowers." The doctor shrugged. "It happens more than you'd think. Usually with children or pets. Adults? Well, it's either accidental exposure during gardening, or..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Let's just say we're required to report certain types of poisoning to the authorities." That's when it hit me. Rachel worked for a pharmaceutical company. She knew about drug interactions, toxic substances, dosages. She'd specifically mentioned that the florist told her oleanders meant beware. And she'd been acting strange lately, distant, working late more often, taking calls in the other room. "Doctor," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, "if someone wanted to poison someone else with oleander, how would they do it?" Maya stared at me. "Ethan, what are you thinking? Just humor me." The doctor looked uncomfortable. "Well, theoretically, the leaves and flowers contain the highest concentration of toxins. Direct contact with mucous membranes, or if someone were to, say, chew on the leaves or flowers." I remembered bringing the flower to my nose. Remembered the slightly bitter taste when I'd absently licked my lips afterward. How much would it take to. That depends on body weight, overall health, how much exposure. But Mr. Cole, are you suggesting I need to make a phone call? Maya followed me out of the doctor's earshot. Ethan, you can't seriously think Rachel tried to poison you, can't I? I pulled out my phone, scrolling through Rachel's recent calls. Lots of calls to her boss, Daniel Pierce. Calls that lasted an hour or more. Calls at 11 p.m. on weeknights. Maya, I need a favor, a big one. What kind of favor? The kind that uses your FBI access and your computer skills and doesn't ask too many questions about warrants. Maya was quiet for a long moment. You want me to look into Rachel? I want you to look into Rachel and Daniel Pierce. Phone records, emails, financial transactions, everything. Ethan, if I do this and I'm wrong, it could end my career. And if you don't do it and I'm right, it could end my life. She nodded slowly. Okay, but we do this right, legal, by the book, of course. But even as I said it, I was already planning how to do it very much not by the book. Maya's apartment looked like a computer store had exploded in a library. 3 monitors glowed on her desk, surrounded by towers of technical manuals, empty energy drink cans, and a collection of rubber ducks she claimed helped her debug code. It was 10 p.m., and we'd been at this for 4 hours. Okay, she said, cracking her knuckles. I've got Rachel's phone records for the past 6 months. Legal access through our domestic surveillance protocols. I listed her as a person of interest in a potential fraud case. Is that true? It is now. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Look at this pattern. Starting about 3 months ago, she's been calling Daniel Pierce an average of 12 times per day. Calls lasting anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. I leaned over her shoulder, studying the data. That's a lot of work calls. It gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. Maya clicked to another screen. Credit card records. She's been using the card registered to your joint account for some interesting purchases. The list made my stomach clench. Victoria's Secret. Expensive restaurants I'd never been to. A hotel in downtown D.C., charged 3 times in the past month. Always on weekdays when I thought she was working late. There's more, Maya said quietly. I managed to recover some deleted text messages from her cloud backup. Ethan, are you sure you want to see these? Oh, nodded, though I wasn't sure at all. And the first message thread was from 2 weeks ago. Daniel, can't stop thinking about yesterday. You're incredible. Rachel, I know. Poor Ethan has no idea what he's missing. Too busy with his spreadsheets to notice his wife. Daniel, when are you going to tell him? Rachel, why would I tell him? I like having my cake and eating it too. Besides, he'd never survive a divorce. He'd probably have a heart attack. Daniel, maybe that would solve our problem. Rachel, don't joke about that. Although, his life insurance policy is pretty substantial. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Maya's hand found my shoulder. There's more, she said. From yesterday. Nue, me bendono balitzas. Rachel commandando vamos. White oleanders, just like we discussed. Daniel, are you sure about this? It seems risky. Don't redan dem bida. Danun dem dinens. We levenum disapt the same teroher. Yadvemtanisel kuma mitazedem. Misisim dem dem be. Misisim beatus up in beams. But mals midsums. Daniel, what if someone figures it out? Rachel, who's going to figure it out? He's a boring accountant with no friends. I'll be the grieving widow, you'll comfort me, and in a year or 2 we'll get married and live happily ever after on his life insurance money. Daniel, how much are we talking about? Rachel, 800,000, plus his pension and the house. We'll be set. I sat down heavily in Maya's desk chair. 14 years of marriage, a 10-year-old daughter, and my wife was planning to murder me for the insurance money. Ethan, we need to call the police. This is attempted murder. With what evidence? Deleted text messages that you accessed through questionable means? A bouquet of flowers that could be explained as an innocent mistake? Maya frowned. The messages clearly show intent. Do they? A good lawyer could argue they were just fantasizing. Dark humor between lovers. And Rachel's smart, she made sure the florist told her what oleanders meant. She can claim ignorance. So what do you want to do? I stared at the messages for a long moment. My wife, the woman I'd loved since college, the mother of my child, had tried to kill me, was probably still planning to kill me since the oleander thing hadn't worked. I want to destroy them. Ethan, not legally, not through the system. I want to destroy them the way they tried to destroy me. Completely, publicly. I want them to lose everything. Maya was quiet for a moment. That's not very FBI of you. Good thing I'm not planning to do it as an FBI agent. She turned in her chair to face me. What exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that Ethan Cole, boring accountant with no friends, is going to die. And then we're going to watch Rachel and Daniel celebrate. We're going to record every moment of their celebration. And then we're going to make sure the whole world sees exactly what kind of people they really are. You want to fake your own death. I want to give them exactly what they think they want. And then I want to take it all away. Maya stared at me for a long moment. Then she opened her laptop. I know a guy who might be able to help us. But Ethan, if we do this, there's no going back. Once you're officially dead, you're dead until we prove otherwise. I'm already dead to her. This way at least I get to see her reaction. Maya's fingers flew over the keyboard. His name is Silas Rourke. Well, let's just say he has experience with making people disappear and reappear. He owes me a favor from a case I helped him with a few years ago. Is he trustworthy? Define trustworthy. He's a criminal, but he's a criminal with standards. And he hates cheating spouses almost as much as he hates the IRS. An hour later, we were sitting in a 24-hour diner in Arlington, waiting for Silas. Maya had described him as colorful, which I was beginning to realize was FBI speak for completely insane but useful. He slid into the booth across from us at exactly midnight. Silas Rourke looked like Santa Claus's criminal brother. White beard, twinkling eyes, and the kind of smile that suggested he knew where all the bodies were buried because he'd helped dig the holes. Maya, sweetheart, he said, his voice carrying a slight Irish accent. You look lovely as always, and you must be the recently deceased Mr. Cole. Not yet deceased, I corrected. Details, he waved a hand dismissively. Maya tells me your wife tried to poison you with flowers. That's almost poetic. I respect a woman with style, even if she is a murderous harpy. Can you help us? Silas leaned back in the booth, studying me. The question isn't whether I can help you, lad. The question is whether you have the stomach for what you're asking me to do. Faking a death isn't like the movies. It's messy, complicated, and if we get caught, we all go to prison for a very long time. What would it involve? Well, first we'd need to get you back to the hospital. Maya tells me you're still officially being treated for oleander poisoning. We'd need to stage a cardiac event, something dramatic enough to require resuscitation, but controlled enough that we don't actually kill you. Maya leaned forward. I still have contacts at George Washington Hospital. Dr. Sarah Kim owes me a favor. The pretty cardiologist? Silas grinned. Oh, this is getting interesting. She could fake the medical records, declare time of death, even arrange for a body to be released to the funeral home. What body? I asked. Leave that to me. I know people who have access to John Doe's, who won't be missed. Similar height, weight, age. After a house fire or car accident, even family members have trouble with identification. The casual way he discussed body swapping made my skin crawl, but I pushed the feeling down. Rachel had tried to murder me. She deserved whatever was coming. How long would I have to stay dead? Long enough to let them think they've won. Long enough for them to make mistakes. Long enough to gather evidence that will hold up in court. Silas paused. And long enough for you to decide exactly how you want them to pay. I thought about the text messages, about Rachel's casual dismissal of our marriage, her mockery of my life, her willingness to kill me for money, about Daniel's eager participation in planning my death. I want them to lose everything, their jobs, their reputations, their freedom. I want the whole world to know what they are. Silas's grin widened. Now you're speaking my language. Maya, call your doctor friend. Tell her we need to stage a resurrection. Dr. Sarah Kim looked exactly like someone who could convincingly fake a death, calm, competent, and slightly amused by the moral flexibility required for the job. She'd agreed to help after Maya explained the situation. though I suspected her willingness had more to do with her obvious crush on Maya than any sense of justice. "Okay," she said, reviewing my chart in the hospital break room at 2 a.m. "You're already admitted for oleander poisoning, which gives us a perfect setup. Cardiac glycosides can cause sudden cardiac arrest even days after initial exposure. We'll stage an event tomorrow evening during shift change when there's maximum confusion." "What exactly happens to me?" I asked. "You'll take a mild sedative that will slow your heart rate and make you appear unconscious. I'll inject you with something that will cause temporary cardiac arrhythmia. Dangerous looking but not actually life-threatening. We'll work on you for about 20 minutes, then I'll call time of death. And then you'll spend about 6 hours in the morgue cooler, which will be extremely unpleasant but not fatal. Silas's contact at the funeral home will switch you out with a John Doe who died in a car accident yesterday. Similar build, face damaged beyond recognition." Maya squeezed my hand. "Are you sure about this?"
I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing.
Drunk? I have everything on video.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Thought about Rachel at home, probably texting with Daniel about how disappointed she was that the flowers hadn't worked. Maybe planning her next attempt. I'm sure. The next 18 hours passed in a strange haze. I called Rachel to tell her I was feeling worse, that the doctors wanted to keep me for observation. She made all the right concerned wife noises, but I could hear something else in her voice: impatience, frustration that her plan hadn't worked as quickly as she'd hoped. "I'll be there tonight," she said, "with Ava." "No, don't bring Ava to the hospital. She doesn't need to see me like this." "Okay, I'll get Mrs. Henderson to watch her." Daniel offered to drive me. Isn't that sweet of him? Sweet, right. Maya stayed with me through the day, ostensibly as my FBI partner checking on my condition, actually as my co-conspirator making sure I didn't lose my nerve. Around 5 p.m., she stepped out to coordinate with Silas and Dr. Kim. That's when Rachel arrived with Daniel. I pretended to be asleep, watching them through barely open eyes. Rachel looked stunning, as always. Blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite the supposed stress of her husband's hospitalization. She was wearing a black dress that was just a little too fashionable for a hospital visit. Daniel Pierce looked exactly like the kind of man who would help murder someone's husband. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of artificial charm that came from years of climbing corporate ladders over other people's backs. He put his hand on Rachel's lower back as they approached my bed, a gesture that was supposed to look supportive but felt possessive. "How is he?" Rachel asked the nurse. "Stable, but we're concerned about cardiac complications. Oleander poisoning can cause delayed reactions." Rachel nodded sympathetically. "He's always been so careless about plants. I told him those flowers might not be safe, but he insisted on keeping them on his desk." The casual lie took my breath away. Even now, she was setting up her story, making sure everyone would remember that she'd warned me about the flowers. "The doctor should be in soon," the nurse said. "Are you his wife?" "Yes, and this is Daniel Pierce, my boss. He's been so supportive during this difficult time." Daniel squeezed her shoulder. "Ethan's a good man. We're all praying for him." I wanted to vomit, and not from the oleander poisoning. They sat beside my bed for an hour, making quiet conversation about work, about how sorry they were, about how unexpected this all was. But I caught the looks between them, the small touches, the way Daniel's hand lingered on Rachel's arm just a little too long. At 7 p.m., Dr. Kim entered with a team of nurses. "I'm sorry, but we need you to step outside. Mr. Cole's heart rhythm is becoming irregular." Rachel stood immediately. "Is he going to be okay? We're going to do everything we can." As they left the room, I heard Daniel whisper to Rachel, "It's going to be okay. Everything's going to work out exactly like we planned." Dr. Kim waited until they were gone, then locked the door. "Ready?" I nodded, though I wasn't ready at all. How could anyone be ready to fake their own death? The sedative hit my system like a warm wave. My vision blurred, my limbs grew heavy, and the last thing I remembered was Dr. Kim saying, "Time of death, 7:47 p.m. I woke up 6 hours later in the back of Silas's van, feeling like I'd been buried alive, which, technically, I had been. "Welcome back to the land of the living," Silas said cheerfully. Or should I say, "Welcome to the land of the legally dead but actually alive." "How do you feel?" "Like I've been hit by a truck." "That's normal. The cardiac drugs have some unpleasant side effects." Maya's got coffee and donuts in the front seat. I sat up slowly, my head spinning. Did it work? Like a charm. Your wife put on quite a performance. Tears, fainting, the whole show. Very convincing, except for the part where she and Daniel were holding hands in the parking lot 20 minutes later. Maya climbed into the back of the van, handing me a cup of coffee. I recorded everything. Rachel's grief performance, Daniel's comforting her, and yes, the hand-holding. Also some very interesting phone calls. What kind of phone calls? Rachel called her insurance agent from the hospital parking lot. Wanted to know how soon she could file a claim, what documentation she'd need. She also called a real estate agent about putting the house on the market. She works fast. It gets better, Silas said. Daniel called his travel agent. Booked 2 tickets to the Cayman Islands for next week. First class. I sipped the coffee, trying to process the reality of my situation. As far as the world was concerned, Ethan Cole was dead. My wife was already planning to cash in on my death and run away with her lover. And I was sitting in the back of a criminal's van, planning revenge. So what now? I asked. Maya pulled out her laptop. Now we watch them celebrate, and we record every moment of it. The first video she showed me was from the hospital security cameras. Rachel and Daniel in the parking garage, embracing passionately the moment they thought they were alone. Daniel lifting Rachel off her feet, spinning her around. Both of them laughing. That was taken 30 minutes after your death, Maya said quietly. The second video was from a traffic camera outside an upscale bar in Georgetown. Rachel and Daniel, still in their funeral clothes, toasting with champagne. And that was 2 hours later. I stared at the screen, watching my wife celebrate my death with the man who'd helped her plan it. The woman I'd loved for 14 years, raising a glass to my corpse. I want to destroy them, I said. Silas grinned. Now you're talking. What did you have in mind? I want them to think they've won. I want them to collect the insurance money, quit their jobs, book their tropical vacation. I want them to feel completely safe and completely happy. And then I want to take it all away, publicly, spectacularly. I want everyone they know to see exactly what they are. Maya closed her laptop. That's going to require some planning and some very careful timing. How long do we have? Insurance companies typically take 30 days to process death benefits, assuming there are no complications. But Rachel's smart. She'll wait a few months before making any dramatic changes. Grieving widows who immediately run off to tropical islands tend to attract attention. Silas started the van. Then we'd better get started. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but it's also a dish that requires a lot of preparation. As we drove through the empty streets of Washington, I thought about Rachel tucking Ava into bed, probably telling our daughter that Daddy had gone to heaven. I thought about the funeral that would happen in a few days, where Rachel would play the grieving widow while planning her new life. But mostly, I thought about the moment when I would reveal myself to them. The moment when their perfect plan would crumble, and they would realize that the boring accountant they'd tried to murder was very much alive and very, very angry. Silas, I said, do you know anything about life insurance fraud? I know that it's a federal crime with a maximum sentence of 20 years. Good, because I'm about to become an expert. My own funeral was surreal in ways I hadn't anticipated. Sitting in Silas's van across the street from St. Matthew's Cathedral, watching people I'd known for years file in to mourn my death, I felt like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Maya handed me a pair of binoculars. There's quite a turnout. She was right. Colleagues from the FBI, neighbors, college friends I hadn't spoken to in years. My boss, Director Harrison, looking genuinely grief-stricken. Even my dentist had shown up. But the real show was Rachel. She emerged from a black limousine wearing a perfectly tailored black dress and a veil that managed to be both modest and stunning. Ava held her hand, looking small and confused in her dark blue dress. Behind them, Daniel Pierce played the supportive family friend, his hand hovering protectively near Rachel's elbow. She looks devastated, Maya observed. She looks like she's auditioning for a movie role. Through the binoculars, I watched Rachel accept condolences from a stream of mourners. She had tears at exactly the right moments, accepted hugs with just the right amount of fragile grace, and managed to look both heartbroken and beautiful. Silas, please tell me you're recording this. Every second, lad. I've got cameras in the church, microphones on 3 of the mourners, and a very nice telephoto lens capturing all the intimate moments. The service itself was everything Rachel had always said she wanted for her own funeral. Elegant, dignified, with just enough personal touches to seem heartfelt. She'd chosen readings about love and loss, had my favorite hymn played, and even included a photo montage of our life together. What she hadn't expected was for Maya to hack into the church's audio system. "Ladies and gentlemen," came Maya's voice through the speakers, "before we conclude today's service, the family has asked me to share some personal messages that Ethan recorded before his death." Rachel's head snapped up, her face pale. She hadn't authorized any recordings. The first message was actually from me, recorded the night before in Silas's van. But as far as anyone in the church knew, it was a dying man's final words to his family. "Rachel, my love," my voice echoed through the cathedral. "I know you'll miss me. I know you'll grieve. But I want you to be happy. I want you to find love again. In fact, I hope you find someone who makes you feel the way you deserve to feel. Someone who appreciates what an amazing actress you are." Rachel's face went white. The word actress hung in the air like a threat. "And to my dear friend Daniel Pierce, who I know will take such good care of my wife and daughter. Daniel, you're exactly the kind of man Rachel deserves. The kind of man who would do anything for money. The kind of man who would help a woman poison her husband." The church erupted in confused murmurs. Rachel stood up, looking around frantically. "I also want everyone to know how much I appreciated Rachel's final gift to me. Those beautiful white oleander flowers. Did you know that oleanders are deadly poisonous? Did you know that Rachel works for a pharmaceutical company and knows exactly how toxic they are? Did you know that she and Daniel have been planning my death for months?" Daniel was already moving toward the exit, but Silas's associates had positioned themselves at all the doors. "But most of all," my voice continued, "I want everyone to see how much Rachel and Daniel have been grieving my loss." The church's screens lit up with video footage. Rachel and Daniel embracing in the hospital parking lot, toasting with champagne at the Georgetown bar, Daniel booking tickets to the Cayman Islands, Rachel calling the insurance company before my body was even cold. The congregation sat in stunned silence as months of recorded conversations played through the speakers. Rachel mocking my boring life. Daniel joking about how easy it would be to get rid of me. Their detailed discussions about the insurance money and how they'd spend it. "So please," my voice concluded, "don't feel too sorry for Rachel. She's about to become a very wealthy woman. At least, she would be, if insurance companies paid out on murders. And if I were actually dead." The church doors opened, and I walked in. The silence was absolute. Rachel's scream cut through the air like a knife. Several people fainted. Director Harrison looked like he was having a heart attack. I walked slowly down the aisle, very much alive, very much not dead, and very much enjoying the look of absolute terror on Rachel and Daniel's faces. "Hello, darling," I said, stopping in front of Rachel. "Miss me?" Rachel's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Daniel had gone completely gray. "You're dead," Rachel whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." I was dead, legally speaking. But it turns out that when you fake your own death to catch your wife trying to murder you, you can unfake it pretty easily, especially when you have FBI resources and a very good lawyer. Maya appeared at my side, along with a team of federal agents. "Rachel Cole and Daniel Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and insurance fraud." As the handcuffs clicked around Rachel's wrists, she looked at me with pure hatred. "You bastard, you ruined everything." "No, sweetheart, you ruined everything the moment you decided to kill me. I just made sure everyone got to see what kind of person you really are." The congregation was still in shock, but I could see phones coming out, people recording, the story already spreading on social media. By tomorrow, everyone in Washington would know about the woman who tried to poison her husband with flowers and got caught when he faked his own death. Daniel tried to run as they led him away, but Silas's associates were very good at their jobs. The last I saw of him, he was being dragged out of the church, screaming about how this was all Rachel's idea. Ava ran to me, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, I thought you were dead." I picked her up, holding her tight. "I'm sorry, baby. Daddy had to pretend to be dead to catch some very bad people. But I'm never going to leave you again." Director Harrison approached us, looking confused and angry and relieved all at once. "Cole, what the hell just happened here?" "My wife tried to murder me, sir. So I faked my death, gathered evidence of her crimes, and had her arrested at my own funeral. I'll have a full report on your desk Monday morning." He stared at me for a long moment. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard of. Yes, sir, it is. It's also brilliant. Remind me never to get on your bad side. As the church emptied and the media circus began, I stood holding my daughter, watching my wife and her lover being led away in handcuffs. The woman who had tried to kill me for insurance money was about to spend the next 20 years in federal prison. The man who had helped her plan my death would be her cellmate. Maya touched my arm. So what now? Now I go back to being a boring accountant. Except I'm a boring accountant who just pulled off the most spectacular revenge in FBI history. Silas appeared beside us, grinning. Lad, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Your wife's face when you walked through those doors, I'll treasure that memory forever. Thank you, all of you. I couldn't have done this without you. What are you going to tell Ava? I looked down at my daughter, who was still clinging to me like I might disappear again. I'm going to tell her the truth, that sometimes people we love do terrible things, and when they do, we have to make sure they face consequences. And that no matter what happens, I will always, always protect her. As we left the church, I could hear the reporters shouting questions, the cameras clicking, the story spreading across the internet. By evening, hash poison petals would be trending worldwide. Rachel's carefully constructed image as the grieving widow would be replaced by her new reality as the woman who tried to murder her husband with flowers. The boring accountant with no friends had just become the most famous man in America. And Rachel Cole, pharmaceutical PR executive and would-be murderer, was about to discover that some flowers are more dangerous than others, especially when they bloom into justice.